a very thorough presentation. Committee members, members of the media, friends, my name is Andrew Caddell. I have been a reporter in virtually every region of Canada, including the National Assembly in Quebec. I've advised ministers and premiers. I've run for office at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels, and I've put my name forward for the village council in Kamouraska, here in Kamouraska, where I now live in my family's ancestral home. I worked for the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, in Skopje, Macedonia, and Dhaka, Bangladesh, and I served with what is now Global Affairs Canada as a diplomat from 2001 to 2017. In helping to create the task force, we sought to develop a populist organization that was not constrained by government funding in establishing our policies, a group that would complement, not compete with, the work of the Quebec Community Groups Network, that would be a voice of reason, a source of pertinent analysis, and would speak truth to power. From the start, I was adamant we should establish certain principles. To that end, Colin Standish and I drafted an op-ed which appeared in the English media. We have tried to publish it in the French media, but à date, il n'y avait pas d'intérêt. J'aimerais bien voir cet éditorial dans les médias francophones. It clearly stated our beliefs. Allow me to repeat them here. Quebec's English-speaking community is a distinct group of over 1 million people who share a common language, as well as established institutions, values, history, and culture. That was supported by the Blanchard judgment in the Bill 21 case. 2, the English and French-speaking communities have long worked together for the betterment of Quebec, having lived side by side, married, collaborated in the community, and supported one another in democratic endeavors. 3, the English-speaking community is dynamic, diverse, multiracial, and multicultural. It embraces people of Indigenous, African, Asian, American, and European heritage, of dozens of ethnicities and faiths. 4, our support for Canadian federalism does not diminish our love for Quebec. It is a belief in a country praised as one of the greatest in the world for its capacity to embrace difference and encourage understanding. 5, we oppose any legislation that reduces the rights of any of our fellow citizens based on language, race, religion, gender, sexual preference, or national origin. 6, the only way to create a better society is through dialogue and protection of the rights of all, not through the imposition of laws that reduce access, diminish rights, or create barriers between people. 7, English Quebecers are the largest bilingual community in Canada. We choose to live, work, and raise our families here, but we do not accept being discriminated against for who we are. I am sure these principles resonate with the members of the committee. I think they should also resonate with moderate francophones outside Quebec, as well as our own fellow English-speaking citizens. Je veux dire que je suis tellement à l'aise en français. Je suis impliqué dans la vie politique au Québec depuis longtemps. Je négocie des contrats, je travaille en français et mes enfants sont allés à l'école primaire et secondaire en français. Je suis francophile et je suis très à l'aise au Québec. Mais il existe au Québec des gens sur une marge de société qui parlent anglais seulement. Ce sont les Noirs, les indigènes, les aînés, les gens dans les villes ruraux pauvres. Il y a des Asiatiques qui viennent d'arriver. Il y en a plusieurs parmi ces 1,2 million qui ne parlent que l'anglais et qui font partie de notre communauté. On ne veut pas les abandonner. Et comme ça, comme moi, en tant que quelqu'un qui parle français, j'aimerais bien encourager l'existence et la reconnaissance et le respect pour ces gens qui sont québécois autant qu'une personne comme moi qui a des racines ici depuis 1640. Et si le projet de loi 96 passe, je crois que Québec et les Québécois seraient embarrassés par les excès, les sections qui vont trop loin. Il y aurait des rapports médiatiques dans les médias américains, j'en suis sûr, qui vont faire une analyse qui aurait des retombées très mauvaises pour le Québec. Among our members are some experts who have provided an analysis which is very pertinent. I'm indebted to Rahul Majumdar, Derek Hetherington, and Ben Watt for their extraordinary work. Here's a sample of an analysis of the economic effects of language policy. There's been a net outmigration of allophones from Quebec to the rest of Canada for each census period from 1966 to 2016, amounting to a net outflow of 120,000 individuals. Many of these people were well qualified and received government language training in French. Two, there's been a net outmigration of Anglophones from Quebec to the rest of Canada for each census period from 1966 to 2016, amounting to a net outflow of 310,000 individuals. Together, that's over 430,000 individuals. A study of outmigration based on the 2011 census showed that Quebec-born Anglophones with a higher university degree, such as a PhD, an MA, an MD, or a dentistry degree, were less likely to stay in Quebec than Quebec-born Anglophones with a college or high school diploma, despite being as bilingual as their peers who remained in Quebec. From 1971, this is before Bill 101, to 2018, enrollment in English primary and secondary schools dropped from 256,000 to 96,000. This threatens the critical mass necessary to maintain such institutions off the island of Montreal, despite the government's vows to protect minority linguistic communities. Should Bill 96 pass, this effect will be amplified by capping access to English cégeps and will likely put the future viability of small cégeps, such as Champlain-Lennoxville, Champlain-St. Lawrence in Quebec City, and Cégep de la Gaspésie English section in peril. Another analysis looks into the implications for individuals of Bill 96, setting out, for example, the changes to Article 32. This is what the current article reads. The professional orders shall use the official language in their written communications with their general membership. They may, however, in commuting with an individual member, reply in his or her language. Here's the new article. The professional orders shall only use the official language in their written and oral communications with all or some of their members and of the candidates to the practice of the profession. Unless otherwise provided for in this act, they shall use only that language when communicating orally or in writing with an individual member. According to the Office des Professions, Quebec recognizes 46 professional orders with a total membership exceeding 411,000 people. Does that mean policing the French language skills of 411,000 people on a daily basis? There are many other more egregious examples that Colin has spoke about. These sections of the law are serious and important, as we've heard. There are some elements of the law we can embrace, such as free French classes. Others we see as a challenge to overcome, like the requirement for resolutions on English language services in municipalities, which do not have a best before date, so we don't know how long they're going to endure. But there's a matter that goes beyond the letter of the law, its social and political impact. When a government passes a law, it does so to offer a sanction or a support for a certain project or a behavior. It sends a message that compliance is important. If it places a stop sign on a street, citizens know that there's a sanction if one ignores it. If government pays to support a local tree planting or environmental group, there's an implication that this is a social act worth supporting. So when a government places a sanction on the use of a language, it sends a signal to the population. This is not acceptable behavior. When it enforces it in a way that makes officials immune from the courts, it sends another message. It is acceptable to be above the law. I have to ask, without getting into the implications of dozens of changes proposed in Bill 96, what will the average Quebecer think when they hear English spoken on the street or in the store? How will they react when they see a sign or a document in English, which is perfectly legal? They've been told in a few words, Bill 96 is good for the French language, and it will halt creeping Anglicization. Even though these simple acts like speaking English on the street are perfectly legitimate, the average Quebecer may feel the government's sanction or support empowers them to call out this so-called unacceptable behavior. Do changes in the law give public servants carte blanche to refuse services to people who are Anglophone, but not perhaps historic Anglophones. The potential lies for serious social disruption when the government of all Quebecers acts solely for the majority. We've already seen the impact on minorities with the advent of Bill 21. This is a serious question, and legislators have to look in the mirror and ask themselves if they want to encourage this sort of social upheaval. Do they want public servants harassing individuals or refusing them services because they're not so-called historic Anglophones? Do they want American, British, or Canadian tourists in stores or restaurants to be told, tais-toi, ici on parle français? I hope not. I would now like to talk about my own family, which is in many ways a microcosm of Quebec. Both my father's parents were immigrants, and my father spent much of his childhood in Scotland, so he was effectively an immigrant to Canada in the 1920s. My wife's family were Polish and Russian Jews escaping the pogroms of the late 19th century. However, on my mother's side, her great-grandmother, Marie-Sylvain, was a French-Canadian, a Catholic, with roots dating back to 1640. My mother's great-grandfather was the mayor of Quebec. Mayor John Lemessurier was elected mayor of Quebec in 1868 with the support of working-class Francophones and spoke French fluently, as have most generations in my family. When turmoil broke out on the docks, he was called upon to read the Riot Act and send everyone there to jail. Instead, he refused to read the Riot Act. He went among the crowd, telling jokes and convincing the people to go home, and therefore no one went to jail. We don't hear enough stories of the great Anglophones who built this province. We only hear of exploitation, domination, English bosses, maltreatment. Not the great statesmen, the scientists, the doctors, the entrepreneurs who helped build the great institutions of Quebec, our universities, our schools, our hospitals, our social organizations, our charitable sector. Instead, we are branded as the best treated minority in the world. Not only is that factually untrue, it's an insult to the blood, sweat, toil, and tears of generations of English-speaking people and those who joined us over the last 3 centuries. Nor do we brag enough about the next generation. My own children attended French public schools in Geneva and Ottawa. They speak and write French fluently. However, neither they nor I are considered as anything but mother tongue Anglophones, especially by narrow nationalists. That has to change. Nous sommes tous les Québécois, peu importe notre langue maternelle, notre formation, notre pays d'origine. Alors, laissez-moi parler à nos concitoyens francophones pour 2 minutes. J'ai plusieurs amis qui sont unilingues et qui ont une très bonne qualité de la vie. Heureusement, il n'était jamais nécessaire pour eux d'apprendre l'anglais afin de gagner leur pain. Il n'y a pas de question que nous, les anglophones, veulent retourner à l'époque quand c'était nécessaire ou même important de parler anglais afin d'avancer au travail ou dans la société. Je suis heureux de me débrouiller dans ma langue seconde avec mes voisins au travail et dans les magasins, et que mes enfants sont parfaits bilingues. Mais pour ceux et celles qui veulent apprendre l'anglais, par exemple, les jeunes Québécoises et Québécois, les limites au cégep anglophone vont vous contraindre. Et comme a dit Jean-François Garneau dans la Gazette en mois de mai, Collège Dawson ne m'a pas transformé en anglophone. Ainsi, les limites sur les droits de la personne auraient des retombées pour les francophones, les Québécois francophones. Alors, nous avons besoin de vous afin de combattre cette politique néfaste. Et on a besoin des avocats, des professeurs, des journalistes, les ardents supporters pour les droits humains, et oui, des politiciens, de nous appuyer contre les menaces aux droits de la personne qui sont si évidents dans le projet de loi 96. In closing, allow me to speak to my English-speaking brothers and sisters. This is a difficult time for us all. We may feel as if our leaders at every level of politics, of government, have abandoned us, and that some of our Francophone fellow citizens don't respect us. But by engaging in a peaceful and democratic way, by using our voices and our presence, By insisting we have a right to be here, organizations like ours are standing up for you. The old tropes of les Anglais no longer apply. We are elderly, we are poor, we are middle class, we are Black, Indigenous, people of color from many faiths, recent immigrants from Asia, and others from across Europe. English is our common language, but we are Quebecers as much as anyone who can trace their lineage to the first settlers. Never forget this. When I was a broadcast reporter in the 1970s, I asked René Lévesque, who was a Quebecer. He replied, anyone who pays their taxes in Quebec. By the same token, we recognize this fight is not just ours. All Quebecers have common cause, whether Francophone, Anglophone, or Allophone. The rights that are threatened by this bill are the rights of each one of us. So do not lose heart. I know many of you feel your only option is to leave and that you have a doubtful future here. But we have stayed or we have returned because Quebec is our home. We have faced many obstacles together before, and our community has adapted, survived, and sometimes thrived. With the support and encouragement of those of good faith, we will continue to do the same for generations to come. We'll use every means at our disposal, the courts, demonstrations in the streets, the ballot box, and the public forum. We owe it to those who came before us to ensure our rights are never diminished. We will never, ever lose faith that our cause is just. Merci. Thank you.